this is the meeting at which we would do elections. However, given the numbers of folks that we have, it's probably more prudent to do that at next month's meeting when we are anticipating a full board, particularly since we have a couple of appointments to this board still to fill. Accordingly, I would entertain a motion to table the election of officers until next month for the purposes of the record. So moved by Mr. Dyward. Does anyone second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Campbell. So we will show that as passed. All in favor say aye. Signify by saying aye. We will show that as passed. Given the fact that Matt is not here, that would then fall to Roy as the vice president to run this meeting until we have election of officers next month. So, Roy.
Right. Today is Tuesday, February 1st, 2021, and the time being 7 o'clock. The meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals is called to order. At this time, please silence any electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey which is available at the back of the room. And I'll ask you all to rise and recite the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John, would you call the roll, please?
Lloyd.
Present.
Bill. Present. Alan.
Present. We need to approve the minutes from the meeting of December 21st, 2021. Those minutes were emailed to us, and then you have a copy in front of you. Is there any corrections that anybody sees that needs to be made? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion that we approve these.
Motion. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the December 21st meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, they stand approved. Next item is there is no old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first item is a permanent special exception for Summit Microsystems, 1924 North Hessler Boulevard. Sarah?
Yes, last fall, Jim Mills applied for a temporary special exception to have his computer business out of his home. He does not receive any traffic from that, or people in and out of his home with that. So 1 year later, he's seeking the permanent special exception. He could not be here this evening. He is available by phone if we need to call him to ask him anything. I have not had, over the last year, I have not had any complaints, concerns, anything from neighbors.
Is there anybody from the audience that wishes to speak on this issue? If not, I would entertain a motion that we approve the special exception, the permanent special exception.
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the special exception. John, would you call the roll, please?
Roy.
Yes.
Bill. Yes. Alan.
Yes. And that's done. Moving on, variance for size of accessory structure for Justin and Amy Spears, 903 East Hendrick Street. Sorry.
Yes, Justin came into the office to file a petition for a size variance of an accessory structure. He's wanting to build a pole barn that is 36 by 48 at his property, which is at 903 East Hendrick Street. notices were sent out to property owners that surround that area. I did receive by phone a concern from a resident that has lived on Davidson Street for 40-plus years, that she just feels that's too big for that area, doesn't want to see something of that size. Today I received an email, and want me to read it from the from another homeowner?
Yes.
Okay.
Just read it in its entirety.
Okay, so today I received this email at 3:19 p.m. It says, "I'm very much opposed to Mr. Spear building the size building he is requesting in Lee Addition. As a neighbor who has lived at my present location for some 20 years, I feel like that allowing a building to be constructed of that size is changing our residential neighborhood into the look of more industrial and does not fit into the landscape or the pre-existing size of homes that are already established. Also, the proposed garage is also very close to the neighboring property. I also think large RVs should not be allowed to be parked long-term in residential additions. As I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting, I would like to voice my opposition. Sincerely, Rita Helmick, 928 East Hendricks." And those are the only two that I received. Mr. Spear, if you want to come up to the podium.
State your name for the record, please.
Justin Spear, and also for the record, I noticed in the itinerary it said Justin and Amy Spear. My wife's name is April.
Make sure you correct that.
That's my bad.
April.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from board members for Mr. Spear?
How tall is this building gonna be?
16-foot sidewalls. So overall peak height, I think, is 20, 22 feet, something like that, according to the builder. Whatever the 12-4 pitch takes it to.
Let me make note too, just for those that may not know. In the R2 zone district, the accessory structure cannot exceed 720 square feet. I didn't say that earlier when I was stating the size, so just to let you know that.
How many square feet is this structure?
How many square feet is that?
I don't know the math off the top of my head.
Hold on, I can tell you. Give me just a second. 1,728 square feet.
Is that the smallest size structure that would allow you to park a RV? on that?
Lengthwise, yes, not the width. I just wanted to put a second bay in for my truck. As far as the length of it, to have room to get around the front and back of the RV, the 48 was what made the most sense.
Are they off the property line, Sarah, on the back side there?
It appears that he has on here that it would be at least 10 feet
Yeah,
off of the
minimum
side.
10 feet, 10 to 12 feet to meet the variances.
And then, and then it has to
And
be.
no closer to the house and no closer to the road than the house, so it meets the 30-foot setback for the road.
Okay.
I assume you'd be replacing those smaller sheds, it looks like.
Yeah, that smaller shed will go, yeah.
Concrete driveway?
If need be, I hadn't planned on that, but
I believe it needs to be a concrete driveway.
does it
Paved.
Or paved,
concrete
yes.
or paved? If that's what it requires, then yes.
Yeah, it needs to be one or the other. Anybody else from the board have questions? If not, thank you, Justin. Anybody from the audience here to speak on this petition? Hearing none. No more questions from board members. I would entertain a motion that we approve this petition.
Hang on a minute. Let me,
State your name for the record, please.
Willie Wilson.
Thank you.
Okay, what did you say the size?
I miscalculated. It's, he has, is it 38 by 48?
It's 36 by 48.
Okay, I did not miscalculate. Okay. 1,728 square feet.
What was, did you said 700 and something was the?
So in a residential district, an R2 district, an accessory structure cannot exceed 720 square feet without seeking a variance.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So you're basically saying that we can go 1,000 square feet over in?
No, I'm not saying
No,
that.
but I mean, that if it
Well,
passes, that's what we're saying.
That's what they would be saying if the board passes it.
I don't understand when we're in a residential area addition, how we can just let people just start putting up these enormous buildings that do not go with the housing that is around the surrounding areas. I mean, we've already got that started over there with the old church property, that they stuck a building just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you know, to me, it's hurting all our property values. So, I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to do to keep this in wraps so that everybody don't just start throwing up anything.
That's what this board is for, to decide if this gentleman can do that or not.
If I may, I don't think it's a universal, like just because this gentleman is getting his, or just because this gentleman is asking for his variance doesn't mean that everyone is necessarily going to get a variance. It doesn't even say that he's going to get a variance. It's just that that's what the purpose of this body is to do, is to determine whether or not the requested variance is warranted or justified. So for instance, I can make an equal argument that I would much rather see his building than look at his RV all day.
Well, that's, the RV, according to the original covenants of the addition, was never supposed to be there to begin with. I mean, when my father-in-law was the builder of the addition, and I have the papers that say that there was never, you're not supposed to have RVs or campers parked in driveways in the addition. But we're not able to enforce that.
We do not govern the covenants.
Right,
I-
that would be a homeowner's
So-
association.
I do have a rebuttal to that.
Okay, just a minute, let him finish and then I'll call on you.
I say, I'm not familiar with the covenants, but if there's
Yes.
covenants, then there's somebody to enforce that. But if they're not enforced covenants, then I don't know that that matters.
It's always been up to the homeowners association to take care of that, not this board.
Correct, that is not what we do.
That's what we've never,
Yeah,
Otherwise, that's what we'd be doing all the time.
right, exactly.
Well, that, you know,
But yes, it is in the covenants, because
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson showed that to me this evening.
you know, that's the concern with some of the neighbors that are over there. Some of them have been there since the house was built. And now they're seeing all this going on once that church property sold. And nothing is matching the rest of the addition over there. So, I mean, to me, that's no different than going out in Broussard Addition and putting up a metal Morton building as a house. I mean, how's that any different? You think that they would let that get by out there? I don't think they would. So that's my biggest concern, that and the size of it. The size of it is extremely too big for the neighborhood. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah.
I guess my first comment to the first part of that about the structure being in the Lee's addition, according to Beacon, and when we did the property search at the purchase of the lot, the brief tax description, as according to Beacon, is part blocks 13, 14, and 24 of Wilson's addition, part southwest 1/4, 1-10-9, track 4 point, da-da-da-da-da. This is not part of the Charles Lee addition. I actually checked that before we wrote the check for the property to make sure that it wasn't, in an area where we were going to be held back by land contracts such as that, where we couldn't have our RV there, we would have never purchased the property and built the home that we did. The other thing is compared to the Charles Lee addition, this is a substantially larger lot than any of those homes, and according to the appraisal that I had today, my home value is actually being brought down by the age and size of those lots around us. So it's kind of apples to, I want to just kind of, compared to the Charles Lee edition, because we're not in the Charles Lee edition. We're in platted, I think it was platted in like 1860s, somewhere around there, Wilson edition, and it was never changed from that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Any other comments from the board members? Back to my idea, we would entertain a motion to approve this. Motion's been made. Phil, you have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this variance. John, will you call the roll?
Roy,
No.
Phil,
No.
Alan,
No.
On to the next. This petition is for variance for setbacks and additional accessory structure for Brian Spencer, 518 Lisa Lane. Sarah?
Yes, sorry about that. The city was contacted by a resident in the addition where Mr. Spencer resides at 518 Northeast Lane regarding a carport that was put up at that residence. And I contacted Mr. Spencer. Is he here? Oh, you're right behind him. I couldn't see you. I contacted him to let him know that the carport does not meet the setbacks. And then it's an accessory structure in the front yard of the home. Also on that, he already has an existing accessory structure of a storage shed in the backyard. So there's kind of two things here: the setbacks for the carport, and then for an additional accessory structure. There was a little bit of concern on he has an additional concrete pad by the road for additional parking at his residence. There is a little bit of a concern with looking with Beacon that I realized today that actually that could be in the right-of-way. And I could pass this to show you guys a little bit where you can see that. But I just got that one for you. You have that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So anyhow, he's here for those two things on the variance. So, Mr. Spencer, if you want to come up to the podium. Oh, I do, I'm sorry. I did receive a letter from a concerned neighbor out there, if I can go ahead to read that. Well, do I need to read it because they got it in their packets?
If it's in the packets, then I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Just keep it down.
My name's Brian Spencer, for the record, and the main reason that I never contacted anybody was previous administration. I had talked to the former engineer, not engineer, but Sarah's position actually, and it was never I was never given a straightforward answer as to whether that I could put a carport in or not. So I guess I took it upon myself under, I guess just having not thought about it, to put a carport in. The main reason for it is the fact that, you know, I like to keep my vehicles somewhat covered because I have nice vehicles and I just hate to let them set out. And I do utilize my garage for one vehicle. And I'm also thinking in the future, due to my health concerns, that I'm not many years away from probably being wheelchair bound. So I was looking at that as, you know, a place to put a wheelchair accessible vehicle, keep it out of the weather as well, because I know it wouldn't fit in my garage due to the building constraints on it. So as far as the concrete pad, the pad existed. I just moved, I had a grass strip between it and my driveway. I removed the grass strip, and that would make it appear to be bigger than what it was, which it actually is. But, and I just had a retaining wall built around it. I did not encroach on any other side property where the concrete pad had already existed. And the storage shed, again, having not knowing that I needed a variance for, put that in last fall. So, but I just went by what most everybody else in the neighborhood has, a storage building, and I asked a couple of my neighbors.
Yeah, storage, I'll clarify that, storage building is fine, as long as it meets the setbacks, and it appears that it did.
Okay.
It's just when a carport is considered an accessory structure as well.
Right.
So each property can only have one accessory structure. So you didn't have to get a variance for your storage shed, but you needed to get one for your carport.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Like I said, out of lack of knowledge, I did not take that into consideration. It's my bad.
Thank you. Any questions from board members?
Is it in the right of way?
Well, you know, Beacon's not 100% correct, but I think that even if you moved, well, you see, even if you shifted this a little bit, it's going to be in that right of way, according to this.
Now, you say the right of way, what is the measurements for the right of way there?
Well, Ron, do you want to, you might know that a little bit better.
I don't know specifically at that location. The right-of-way doesn't affect your front property line. It's that boundary between what belongs to the city and what belongs to you. And we typically have 9, 10 feet beyond the curb, but that's a generalization, and the only way to know is to find your property corners. That probably requires a surveyor to do that.
Anybody else from the audience here to speak on this petition? Board members, anything? Pardon me. Anything else from the board members? If not, I would entertain a motion that we approve the variance.
So. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the variance. John, call the roll.
Roy,
No.
Bill,
No.
Alan,
No.
So, Mr. Spencer, you'll have to remove the carport.
Or I guess the outbuilding, right?
Well, but the carport doesn't meet the setbacks.
Okay, yeah, you're at the setbacks.
Because
Never
it
mind.
is in the
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Yes.
But that would be a different issue if you
Right.
wanted to apply again, I think, right? If you got rid of the shed and wanted to come in and just ask for variance for
Move it out the right
Move it out the right
way.
of way. It's in the right of way, no matter, we can't go around. But you could probably maneuver it around as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You
if
could
you-
probably,
that would probably be best to do, have that survey to do that. A surveyor, if they would, so we know where exactly those lines are, otherwise we're all guessing really. Because Beacon is not 100% right.
No, but it's pretty,
It's
right of way's
close.
pretty far back, and even if it would just be adjusted a couple feet, I think it's still gonna be, because it sits really close to the road.
I noticed that. If there's no other business before the board, I would entertain a motion, we adjourn.
I got one more question.
Sure thing.
Can you come up to the podium, please,
Would you
sir?
please?
What would I need to do to find out where the setback is? I mean, I need to know some numbers, so I have
You
something.
would have to, as our engineer said, Mr. May, you would have to hire and have a survey done to
Okay.
know exactly where your property lines are. And then once you do that, and, you know, if you come back and file a variance again to come back before the board for setbacks, you know, if you can move it, you know, maybe be able to shift it back some, you know, and get approval from them with the variance for setbacks, that could possibly happen.
Okay.
But getting a survey to get those property lines established would be the first thing.
My recommendation would be to talk to a surveyor. Andy Sholey is the most widely known one here in town, but there's surveyors all around. So I would contact a surveyor to discuss
Okay.
the property lines.
I'll do that then. Okay, thank you.
If there's nothing else, I entertain a motion, we adjourn. None.
second.